Welcome to Technogram, Redington's podcast channel where we uncover untold stories from the tech world and explore how they are helping us all unlock next. Today we are joined by Ashish Panjabi, the Chief Operating Officer of Jacky's Retail and Jacky's Business Solutions. Jacky's is one of the UAE's well-known retailers, and Ashish has spent decades watching the retail and technology landscape evolve firsthand. With Jacky's also being a Redington partner for over 25 years, this conversation reflects a long standing relationship and a shared journey. Welcome, Ashish. Thank you for being here on Technogram.
Thank you. Pleasure being here.
I think over the years, we have known each other for a long time now
Yeah.
in different roles for both of us. And today I'm talking to you on behalf of Redington. And it feels extra special, especially considering the fact that Jackie's and Redington has a 25-year-old partnership. And 25 years is a long time. So you will be the perfect person, I would say, to kind of tell me how the retail tech landscape has evolved over the years, and also what were the early days like? How was it in the beginning when you had just taken over? Can you take us through that journey?
Yeah. I mean, 25 years, when you say it, seems like a long time.
Yeah,
It doesn't feel like a long time.
blink of an eye.
Yeah. But I think what we've seen is definitely a maturity that's come into the whole ecosystem over here. And I think we've all seen that maturity and that growth happen. I've seen it in Redington because I knew Redington when it was five people sitting in a warehouse in Jabza,
Right.
and they would not give credit to anyone.
I think we discussed this last time
Yeah,
as well, that
yeah.
we were celebrating 25 years
Yeah,
last year, and
yeah,
as many as years we have been partners.
yeah. And for us as retailers as well, we were in an age when there weren't too many multi-brand retailers around. The competition we had at that stage were largely single brand, mono brand distributors who had their own showrooms or
Okay.
outlets.
Hmm.
So that is who we would compete against. And we were one of the few that came in with a whole multi-brand offering in one store. And where we had changed the landscape was at least you could come in
Hmm.
and you could compare products side by side across brands instead of having to jump from shop to shop.
And that was a novel concept back then.
That was yeah what retailing was back then. The only other people really who were in that business of multi-brand was Compumi on the IT side, and you had the emergence of Carrefour, or just called Continent, in
Hmm.
those days.
Yeah.
But that was it really. There weren't too many other people doing multi-brand uh, there.
So there were no malls.
The malls were still in an infancy. The only real mall at that time of significance and power was Dera City Center.
Hmm.
You did have a few other malls, Burjuman and others were there, but they were not really electronics destinations. They were more
Right.
for fashion and they were more.
Do you remember like one of your first interactions with the team at Redington back then?
They took a bet or they took a couple of bets, but I think those bets were what paid off. Now, if you ask me, we were one of the early participants in Gitex Shopper when Gitex Shopper used to be a big deal over
Yes.
here.
Hmm.
And Gitex Shopper was at that time when the fall edition would happen in September, October. That 8 or 10 days of business was about 4 months of business for us.
Wow.
That was the sort of turnover we would do.
Hmm.
Now we needed to have a partner or partners who could fulfill our requirements in terms of stocking, who could be lean enough to see what's moving, what's not moving, respond, work back with the brands to make sure that if there was any adjustments in terms of strategy, because you would have in those days, if you just took the laptop category, you had an HP, you had Acer, you had Dell, you had Lenovo, you had Sony Vaio, you had Toshiba, you had Fujitsu, I mean, you had Asus, you had so many brands that
So
were there,
many.
LG, and it's a bitter fight between all of them.
Yeah.
Everyone wants their own share at that time, and no distributor wanted to be left with stock, no retailer wanted to be left with stock, and if you don't clear it off, then you're going to be sitting on that inventory for months after that.
Yes.
And I think this is where distributors like Redington really stood out because they would come in and look at it and not only look at what's selling, but also be very quick to identify what doesn't sell.
Right.
And then come back to us and say, what do we need to do? And then go back to the brand and say, this is what needs to be done. Can we take a decision now and execute? And I think that's been in the ethos of Redington because
Mm.
that thing about moving out stock
Yeah.
has been something that I think Reddington's always been known for.
Yeah.
Um, you've got very strict KPIs in terms of how you're measured on things
Yes.
like that. And I think that came through in those early days. And we saw that exactly how that happened.
Right. And you have shared with me some of the pictures from the early days with
Yeah.
the Reddington
Yeah.
team. That's, I always like to see old pictures.
Yeah.
Crazy how that happens with
I
people.
mean, this I think this is another testament to what we've seen is that a lot of those people still work with Reddington today.
Yeah.
And they've grown into the organization. They've started off in street level roles and are today in leadership roles over here.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I think this is one of the greater prides that you have is when you say, look back after 25 years, what are you seeing? You've seen the growth of people as well. You've seen the growth in their families. You've seen the growth in their careers.
Right.
And I think there's a satisfaction in all of us knowing that we've all moved forward
Yeah.
in that time.
That's really well said. So one of the things that I wanted to ask you about was that the landscape has evolved quite a bit, and there have been so many changes. And along with that, Jackie's has somehow remained more than relevant, I would say, throughout all these years. You've pivoted when required. So, what has helped you with that? How have you been able to stay competitive?
So I think you always have to take a step back and be a little frank about where we are. Um, we were, example, about 10, 12 years ago, looking at the retail market and seeing it was turning into a bloodbath.
Hmm.
You started to see trends where brands were disappearing. So if I just spoke about 9 or 10 brands in the laptop category, you were coming down to 3 or 4.
The market consolidated.
Yeah. We saw the same thing in the smartphone or the mobile phone segment as well, where suddenly it came down to 3 or 4 brands. We saw it in televisions where it came down to 3 brands. So suddenly you saw the number of brands reducing.
Right.
Um, so that means you can only live off marketing money for so long.
Right.
You can only live off branding income for so long. You actually have to make money on selling the products and being competitive with that. And in that instance, we saw also the competition that was there at the time. And we saw a lot of new competitors come into the market in probably between 2005 and 2015. There's a lot of new brands that came on the market, and some of them have done extremely well. But they were very young and very hungry at that stage. And you don't know whether you're actually making a profit or not. I think at that point of time, you're trying to grow
Yeah.
and you're trying to establish yourself.
Was there a scenario where you had like maybe a conversation internally where you said, okay, we need to change the way things are
We
being
would
done?
discuss amongst retailers. So we would talk quite often, especially things like Gitex Shopper brought us together,
Hmm.
where we did discuss a lot of things together in terms of how to plan promotions, how to negotiate um, in terms of rents and things like
With
that
other retailers.
with other
Oh,
retailers.
that's
We were there. We did a lot of things together as retailers as well.
okay.
But the objectives of each retailer was different. And this is where the challenge came in. Now, if a retailer is trying to establish themselves and grow, and they're doing it at all costs, we look at ourselves and say, what are we doing? We're not there to earn money for the landlords and banks. We're there to earn money for ourselves. And if we saw the number of brands reducing, we saw the competitive landscape changing, we said, let's change tact a bit. If everyone is coming to our market, let's go back into the other market. And this is essentially where that change happened, where we set up Jackie's Retail LLC at that time, and spun it out of Jackie's Electronics, where Jackie's Electronics had been a multi-brand electronics retailer. And when everyone else had gone from monobrand into becoming multi-brand, we went the other way and said, let's start up just a store with Samsung.
Right. You went back to being a mono
And we
brand.
went back to opening Samsung brand shops at that particular moment in time. And that worked extremely well for us. We saw when you focus and dedicate yourself, you can do many more things better.
Right. Is there one thing that would surprise retailers of today if you have to think back? Something that was existing last in the previous years and today is unthinkable.
I mean, everyone asks me, they go, electronics is such a competitive business. I don't know how you survive. If that's the only thing you've ever known, you've learned how to survive it. And I think we've gone through all of those ups and downs. Uh, we've seen where the rental structures in the malls have changed completely. They're extremely expensive over here. Yet you see, we're all in the malls. We're still selling, uh, and we're still growing in physical retail. The e-commerce side of it came in. There was a lot of talk about that a lot of us were going to lose out in terms of our market over there, but all of us are selling online as well, and we're seeing the growth online.
It's omnichannel.
Yeah, and you're starting to see the entire pie is just continue to grow. I think this is part of the device story, or the UE story that we've been in, and that we've seen the business evolve in many ways. If you said 15 years ago that a consumer would be replacing TVs in their house every 3 to 4 years or 5 years, no one would have believed you. Because there are people who had TVs in the house for 20 years and said,
Right.
if the thing doesn't break, I'm not moving it.
Yeah.
Why would I ever change it?
True.
You were limited by technology in those days. It was where the Do and Etisalat connection came in, is where the TV went. Today,
Right.
it's wherever there's a Wi Fi signal, is where the TV goes.
Exactly.
So we saw that growth in terms of what happened.
And the consumption pattern has also changed,
Yeah,
right? The
yeah,
way we
yeah,
consume
yeah,
electronics.
yeah. I mean, a lot of these have become fashion and lifestyle category products. So if we look at even the frame TV
Yeah.
example,
Yes. It's
it
supposed to be like a
became
picture.
yeah, it became something that became a piece of art in the house.
Yeah.
And you started to see where people are looking at that. We see it in kitchen appliances,
Mm-hmm.
where today the appliances in the kitchen also represent the image you want to have within the household.
Yep.
Earlier, it was just fridges came in white and silver, and that was it. And everything came like that. And whether it matched or not, and the cabinets were
Didn't
matching or
matter.
not, no one cared.
So you spoke about technology. So what are some of the biggest priorities you have as a company, and where are you placing a bet? How does AI come in this picture for you?
I mean, I don't like to talk about AI much because I don't think most of us understand it well enough yet. Um,
How do you understand it?
you talk about it, and a lot of it is still what we would call machine learning back in the day,
Mm-hmm.
or big data analytics, or things like that. Um, AI is one of those things that will be there, but there's a lot of sense in terms of what we were doing to begin with. Now, what we're seeing is devices more connected, and everything a lot more connected. And when things are connected, you've got a lot more data coming back to you. What we're able to do now is probably filter through the data a little better than we could what, compared to once upon a time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what does that mean is you're a marketing person. If you had to run a marketing campaign 15, 20 years ago, it was completely different to how you'd run a marketing campaign
Yeah,
today.
the tools that we would use or
You would
strategy.
go
Yeah.
mass media,
Yep.
go out. Whether I was interested in diapers or not, you send me an ad for diapers.
Right. So now you can customize
Now
better.
you know exactly what I need. You know exactly my profile. And this is where we started to see the change in the maturity come in. Everyone's systems have gotten better in terms of what they do. So, example, we launched our Galaxy Points loyalty program last year. What does that allow us to do? Yes, we reward customers for shopping with us, but we also understand them a lot better. We know exactly who's buying what. We know exactly when they're due for an upgrade. We know exactly um, what their consumption habits are. There's a lot more we can start to do with that a lot more intelligently. We started to invest in trade-in programs. So we've got our Jacky's Brand Shop Level Up programs that we introduced, where it's also moving to where in the long term it may not be about device ownership. It might be about a device subscription service.
Right.
Um, why own a device when you can keep moving a device and getting the latest and the best if you need it? But making sure the other device also doesn't just end up in a landfill.
Right.
It ends up being reused, recycled.
And here
Or
AI plays a role in all of this.
I think, yeah, because you need to match where you can move all of those products.
So are you placing your bets there?
We are definitely doing that. We're looking at different things on that end. We need to be a lot smarter in terms of what we do on that. Um, we're also seeing in terms of legislation, there is going to be legislation coming in that's going to make us do that. There is going to be e-waste legislation that comes into the country
Yeah.
at some point in time. I know a lot of the work has been going on. We've seen a lot of the the early work on that. And that's going to mean we have to become more responsible also as retailers, and as people who are part of the system, because we need to make sure that we take care of the environment that we're in. It's easier to buy a new phone than ever before.
Yeah.
What do you do with the old phone?
I think that's a big problem, right? Lots
Yeah.
of people have the.
It used to be a case, you bought a phone, you gave it to your kids, they took your old phone. Your kids don't want your old phone. They want a better phone than you.
Yeah.
They're actually demanding a better phone than what you have.
Yeah.
So who do you give that old phone to? And that classic question of everyone sitting with a drawer at home full of old phones
Yeah.
doesn't help the environment as well,
Mhm.
because eventually that ends up in the bin, and that ends up in a landfill.
And there are lots of buyback programs or exchange
Yeah,
programs.
yeah, but it's you see, there's a mental block in that. Until you've not gone through a trading process once,
Hmm.
you've got that fear. What happens to my data? What happens to everything else? Am I protected? What if I ever needed that phone for something in the future again?
Right.
And as we're moving to the cloud, and as you're starting to see, it becomes a lot easier to do that.
Hmm.
A lot of that friction is going, but it's not completely gone yet.
Right.
So we're going to see those things happen, and I think this is where we're going to see the market evolve as well.
Okay. Um, if we had to invite you back in 5 years' time,
Yeah.
what would you have hoped Jackie's to have achieved?
So, like I said, we continue looking at our strengths in terms of what we can do and where we can do things better. The one area we're moving into now is logistics as well, because there is an efficiency cycle in moving product around, and I think for us, we're starting to see that there is an opportunity in that as well. So our investments are going into that. Even today, if we're talking about last mile delivery, taking back products, serviceability, there's a lot of areas where we can do things better. Um, and in terms of what value offerings a customer can get, how are they going to pay for a product? Um, is it a subscription
Right.
versus an ownership model?
Hmm.
We're going to start to see that, and I think this is where we're going to start to move in the future. And I think this is what I see us hopefully leading the charge on.
Thanks, Ashish. And before you go, I have like a short snippet, a short segment where we have like a rapid fire. So uh, you have to say, you have to choose between two options. Okay. So online first or store still matter?
Online first,
Disrupt yourself or protect what works?
disrupt yourself,
AI decisions or human judgment?
human judgment,
Scale fast or stay profitable?
stay profitable.
One uncomfortable truth retail leaders need to accept.
Not everything works.
Thanks, Ashish. This has been a great conversation, and it's been really nice reflecting on the journey that you have had with Jackie's, as well as Jackie's and Redington's partnership over the last 25 years. So, thank you so much for joining us for Technogram, and hope to have more such conversations and see you back here sooner than 5 years.
Thank you.
And to everyone tuning in today, thank you for being with us on Technogram. We'll be back with more stories, more ideas, and more conversations to help unlock next for our ecosystem and beyond.